The call comes at 8:03 on a Thursday morning. You're making coffee. The thermos is on the counter. The window is there. And then your phone rings, and a lawyer whose name you've never heard says the following sentence: "You have been selected as the sole beneficiary of an anonymous estate valued at $1 trillion. You say nothing, he continues. There is one condition. The full amount must be spent, not invested, not donated to yourself, not transferred back into any account bearing your name within 48 hours. Any amount remaining at the 8:03 a.m. mark on Saturday morning reverts to a trust you will never access again." You ask him to repeat the number. He does. $1 trillion. 12 zeros. One followed by 12 zeros. $1 trillion. You set down the coffee. You look at the window. And you think, I have 47 hours and 59 minutes. The first thing you do is nothing. Not because you're calm. Because your brain genuinely cannot process the number, and you need 60 seconds to make it real. So here is how you make it real. The GDP of Australia, the entire economic output of a country of 26 million people for one full year, is approximately $1.7 trillion. You have $1 trillion. You have 60% of Australia's annual GDP sitting in an account, and you have 48 hours to make it disappear. Jeff Bezos, at his absolute peak net worth, was worth approximately $211 billion. You have nearly 5 of him, in cash, to spend in 2 days. Okay, now you're ready. You pick up the phone. Hour 1. You buy some companies, not invest in, buy, outright, all of them. You call a private acquisition firm and you tell them you need to move fast. First, Boeing. Market cap, roughly $100 billion on a good day. You buy Boeing, not a stake, not a controlling interest. Boeing. The entire company, every commercial jet, every defense contract, every engineer, every hangar, every unfinished Dreamliner sitting on a tarmac in Everett, Washington. $100 billion. You have $900 billion left. You buy Ford Motor Company, $45 billion. You buy General Motors, $50 billion. You now own 2 of the 3 major American automakers, and it is still Thursday morning. You have $805 billion left. You buy Sony, $100 billion. PlayStation, Spider-Man film rights, Columbia Records, every Sony camera, every Sony television, every piece of intellectual property, Sony has spent 78 years accumulating. Yours, because you wrote a check before lunch. $705 billion left. You buy Airbus, the other half of commercial aviation, $100 billion. You now own Boeing and Airbus. Every commercial airplane manufactured on Earth in the next decade will come from companies you own. You did this before noon on a Thursday. $605 billion remaining. You have 36 hours left. Hour 4, infrastructure. You call a construction consortium. You explain the situation. They think you're insane. You wire them $10 million as a deposit while they're still on the phone. They stop thinking you're insane. Here is what you commission in the next 30 minutes. A high-speed rail line connecting every major city in the United States. Boston to Miami. Chicago to Los Angeles. Dallas to Seattle. Every hub, every corridor, every tunnel through every mountain range that engineers have been saying is theoretically possible for 40 years, but financially impossible. The estimated cost of the full U.S. high-speed rail network, based on European and Japanese benchmarks, approximately $1 trillion. Which you do not have anymore because you spent $395 billion buying companies. But you have $500 billion. And you can get the first phase funded, contracted, and legally binding within 48 hours. You wire $200 billion to the Rail Consortium. You make them sign the contract in the next hour. They do. $400 billion remaining. 34 hours left. Hour 6, space. You call the head of a private space company. You don't call Elon. You call someone who has been waiting their entire career for a phone call like this. You tell them you want a moon base, not a concept, not a feasibility study, not a PowerPoint, a funded, fully contracted, shovel-ready or rocket-ready plan to build a permanent human habitat on the lunar surface. You wire $50 billion to start. You buy a satellite launch company for another $20 billion because you're going to need a lot of launches. You commission a private space telescope, larger than the James Webb, designed to look for biosignatures on exoplanets, and fund it to completion for $15 billion. NASA's entire annual budget is approximately $25 billion. You have just spent $85 billion on space in the time it takes to eat lunch. $315 billion remaining. 31 hours left. You eat the sandwich. Hour 8. Real estate. Not houses, cities. You call a sovereign real estate trust and you buy the following. Every commercial building on Park Avenue in Manhattan. All of it. Top to bottom, lobby to penthouse. Every midtown address that has ever appeared on a business card as a status symbol. Estimated value, $20 billion. You buy the Burj Khalifa, $1.5 billion. You buy every property currently listed for sale on the island of Manhattan. There are approximately 8,000 of them at any given time. Average price, somewhere around $1.5 million. Total, roughly $12 billion. You buy a private island in the Maldives, $200 million. You buy 37 other private islands across the Caribbean, Pacific, and Mediterranean, ranging in price from $5 million to $80 million each. You buy the tallest building in Chicago, the tallest building in Tokyo, the tallest building in Dubai that you don't already own. Total real estate spend in hour 8, $60 billion. $255 billion remaining. 29 hours left. Hour 10. Art. This is where it gets genuinely difficult, not emotionally difficult, logistically difficult. Because the most expensive painting ever sold at auction, Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi, went for $450 million in 2017, and that's one painting. You need to spend $255 billion in 19 hours. So you buy every major art collection that is privately held and currently available for acquisition. You buy the Rockefeller Collection, dispersed in 2018 for $835 million, by tracking down every buyer and making offers at 200% of what they paid. You buy 23 private contemporary art collections from dealers in New York, London, and Basel at an average of $500 million each. You acquire the rights to manufacture authorized reproductions of every artwork currently in the public domain and license them globally through a foundation you've just created. Total art spend, $15 billion, $240 billion remaining. 27 hours left. You now own more art than you could ever see in a single lifetime. You keep going. Hour 12. Science. This is the part you've been waiting for. You fund the following fully and completely in the next 2 hours. A cure research initiative for Alzheimer's disease. Current estimates suggest full cure development requires approximately $20 to $30 billion in sustained research over 15 years. You fund the entire thing. $30 billion wired to a consortium of the top research universities on Earth, with a board you've assembled in the last 20 minutes. A malaria eradication program. The Gates Foundation has been working on this for decades. You fund the full eradication pathway vaccines, mosquito suppression technology, distribution infrastructure across sub-Saharan Africa for $10 billion, a global clean water initiative. 2.2 billion people on Earth currently lack access to safely managed drinking water. The infrastructure cost to fix this, according to the UN, is approximately $114 billion. You wire $100 billion to an international clean water consortium and make it their entire operational budget for the next decade. A fusion energy research facility, not a pilot project, a full-scale working reactor designed to achieve commercial fusion power within 10 years. Current estimates? $20 billion. You fund it. Total science spend: $160 billion. $80 billion remaining. 23 hours left. You sit for a moment. You look at the window. You think about the $100 billion you just directed at clean water. 2.2 billion people. You keep going. Hour 15, the absurd category. Because you have $80 billion left and 21 hours, and at some point, this stops being a resource allocation exercise and starts being something else. So here's what you do with the next $5 billion. You buy every gold medal ever won at every Olympic Games that has been privately sold or is currently in a private collection. There are not many, most athletes keep them, but you track down the ones that exist and you pay whatever the seller asks. You commission a full orchestral score of every piece of music humanity has ever written down, performed live by an orchestra of 2,000 musicians in a venue you've just purchased in Vienna, Austria, and recorded to a digital archive that is then distributed free to every person on Earth. You buy the original manuscript of the United States Constitution. It is privately held. The owner has never wanted to sell. You make an offer at 10 times market value. They sell. You purchase the naming rights to every major sports stadium in the United States and rename them all after their respective cities. No more corporate names, just the Chicago Stadium, the Los Angeles Arena, the New York Field. You do this because you have $75 billion left and 20 hours to go. And somewhere around hour 15, you start making decisions based on what actually bothers you. The stadium names bother you. $5 billion. $70 billion remaining. 18 hours left. Hour 17. Things get personal. You call your mother. She asks how you are. You say you're fine. You don't tell her about the $1 trillion because you have spent the last 17 hours not telling people about money, and old habits are difficult to break even when you have $70 billion remaining and 17 hours to spend it. What you do instead? You wire $10 million to every hospital in your home state with the instruction that it be applied directly to unpaid medical bills. No application required, no paperwork, just cleared. You do the same in every other state. Total hospitals in the United States, approximately 6,000. Average unpaid medical debt per hospital, roughly $5 million per year. $30 billion wired in 2 hours. $40 billion remaining. 15 hours left. You call your mother back. You tell her things are good. She says she's glad. She says she was thinking of you. You say you know. Hour 20. The things money genuinely cannot solve faster than 48 hours. Here's the honest part. You have $40 billion left. You have 12 hours. And there are things you have been trying to fund all day that have hit a wall that is not financial. You can write a check for a cure for Alzheimer's, but the research still takes time. You can fund a moon base, but the rockets still need to be built. You can wire $100 billion to clean water infrastructure, but the pipes still need to be laid. Money does not compress time. You knew this already. You know it differently now. So here's what you do with the last $40 billion. You create 40 endowments of $1 billion each, assigned to 40 different universities around the world with a single mandate. Fund whatever the researchers think is most worth funding with no strings attached in perpetuity. $40 billion. 12 hours left. The account reads 0, midnight on Friday, 12 hours early. You sit in the chair by the window that faces the street, the window that faces something other than a parking structure. You think about what just happened. In 48 hours, technically 36, you bought 2 aircraft manufacturers, 2 major car companies, a major electronics conglomerate, funded the entire American high-speed rail network through its first contracted phase, commissioned a moon base and 2 new space programs, bought half of Midtown Manhattan and 38 private islands, directed $100 billion at clean water for 2.2 billion people, funded Alzheimer's cure research in full, eradicated, in theory, on a check, on paper, the financial obstacles to ending malaria, cleared $30 billion in unpaid hospital bills, renamed every stadium in America after its city, and created 40 permanent research endowments at universities across the world. You didn't buy a yacht. You didn't buy a private jet. You thought about it. You had a window somewhere around hour 9 where the private jet felt like it made sense, and then you thought about $100 billion and clean water for 2.2 billion people, and the jet lost its appeal very quickly. The thermos is still on the counter, the coffee is still in it, it's midnight on Friday, and your net worth is exactly what it was on Wednesday, and you have 12 hours left on the clock and nothing left to spend. 8:03 a.m. Saturday. The lawyer calls again. He confirms the account balance. He confirms the time. He says, "You've satisfied the condition." You ask him what happens now. He says nothing. The estate is closed. You say thank you. You hang up. Here is what stays with you. Not the companies, not the islands, not the stadium names, which you're actually quite pleased about. What stays with you is the moment somewhere around hour 20 when you were staring at a spreadsheet showing $40 billion remaining and 12 hours left, and you realized that money, even $1 trillion, cannot do the most important things. It cannot make the research go faster. It cannot lay the pipe before the engineer does. It cannot compress the time between the funded idea and the working solution. What money does, what it actually does, at any scale, even this scale, is remove the financial obstacle. That's all. Everything else is still human, still slow, still dependent on people who show up and do the work. You funded the cure. Someone still has to find it. You funded the water. Someone still has to lay the pipe. You funded the moon base. Someone still has to fly the rocket. The thermos is on the counter. Coffee's ready. The window's there. The morning's yours. And somewhere on Earth right now, a researcher is walking into a lab that is fully funded for the next 15 years, and she has no idea why. And she doesn't need to. And she's going to spend the next 8 hours doing the work that the money made possible. That's enough. That's actually enough.